Alright, what's up guys, it's me Sean here with some AWS tutorial here today, and today we're going to be looking at how to launch a virtual machine, or also known as EC2, on AWS. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing you need to do here is you need to log into AWS console, and if you did, go ahead and browse down into compute and click on EC2. And if you go into EC2, you'll see this kind of screen where there's resource and create instance and all that stuff. One thing to make sure is that EC2 is not spanned through globally. So if you launch EC2 in one region, it won't appear in other regions. So you have to make sure to choose which region you want to deploy your virtual machine into. So in this case, I'm going to be choosing US West North California. So go ahead and pick your region that you want to deploy your EC2 instance into. Click on Launch Instance. And if you click on Launch Instance, you will first have to choose a Amazon Machine Image, which is also known as AMI. So as you can see under these AMIs, there are a free tier eligible tags. So if you see these and if you have a free tier account, these are going to be free, which is very nice. So as you can see, if you scroll down, there are a bunch of different type of AMIs. So go ahead and pick one of these AMIs. I'm going to launch a Amazon Linux AMI just because it has all these AWS tools. And after you hit select, you will get to the step 2 where you have to pick a instance type. So this is a type of your CPU, your memory regarding your virtual machine. So as you can see, T2 Micro has this free tier eligible. So this is like the most typical choice for everybody. But as you can see, this only has one virtual CPU and 1 GB of memory. So if you want more higher instance type, you would have to choose other ones. But notice there are many different kinds of instance types. They are separated by these letters in front, and all of these letters represent something else. So as you can see, I represents the input output. So these are good for input output heavy workloads, and D and R, for example, R are for a memory optimized, and G for graphic, C for compute. So go ahead and pick one of these instance types. I'm going to pick T2 Micro and hit next. And if you hit next, you'll get to the step where you have to set configure instance details. So this is where you specify all the number of instances. You can also set a auto scaling group. So you can create auto scaling groups so that your instances can automatically grow and shrink. And also you can actually choose a different purchasing option with spot instances. Spot instances are kind of like a stock. If you guys actually look into it, you guys will know what I mean by that. Just remember that you can actually get instances in cheaper price using spot instances. And network. So this is where you have to set your network configurations. And in AWS, they are called VPC, Virtual Private Cloud. So you can actually set a different VPC if you have one. If you don't have one, you can create one here. But for this tutorial, I'll be just using default for network, subnet, and public IP. So you can actually auto assign public IP, or you can disable that feature. And the next one is a IAM role. And if you guys don't know what IAM role is, please go ahead and check out my previous video that I talked about IAM role. But basically, this gives EC2 instance a permission to access other services in your AWS account. And this shutdown behavior determines if you shut down your OS instance, what will happen to this instance here. So you can either make it stop, or you can either terminate this instance when shutdown behavior is occurred. You can enable termination protection so that if somebody come in and try to terminate it by accident, you can actually protect against it one more time. And you can set up a monitoring so that you can watch its CPU usage and memory usage via CloudWatch. And tenancy is where you can actually decide to whether stay on a shared hardware with other people. And don't worry, it's completely safe. Amazon takes care of all the hardware security between virtual machines. But if you don't want this, you can actually pick a dedicated instance as well. And if you click on advanced details, you'll see that you can actually type in user data. And these are typically used for a bootstrap script where you can give it a bash script or whatever so that when your instance launches up, these scripts will get triggered and they will install packages automatically for you. So go ahead and choose your, now we have to add a storage to this EC2 instance. So as you can see, there is a root volume and it's a size 8 GB. You can increase or decrease this size here, but I think it has to be in 4 GB or more. Yeah, it has to be 4 GB or more. And there's a volume type where you can pick different volumes. Magnetic is a HDD, is cheaper, but general purpose SSD is most popular option. Second one, provisioned IOPS, is for if you want to do something input and output heavy workloads, you would have to choose provisioned IOPS. You can pick to delete this EBS volume on termination, or you can uncheck so that you can actually keep this EBS volume even after your EC2 instance terminate. For this tutorial, I'll just check the checkbox so that it terminates after I terminate the EC2 instance. And as you can see, encrypt section said not encrypted. So one thing to make sure is that you cannot encrypt a root volume. So if you want to encrypt your volume, you would have to create new volume down here and use that and check encrypted checkbox here. But again, for this tutorial, I don't really have to do that. So X out of there and hit next. And now here is where we have to add tags. Like I always say, I really recommend you guys to actually add a tag to every instance or resources you create. So let's create a tag called name. Okay, so after you name your tag, you can add more tags up to 50 if you want to. And you can either tag it into an EC2 instance only, or volumes only, or both. So go ahead and hit next. And if you hit next, here is where you set your security group. Security group is kind of like a firewall for your EC2 instance. So you can allow certain protocols to your EC2 instance. And as you can see, it will ask you to either create new security group or select an existing security group. And they have EC2 default security group here, but let me just create a new one for demonstration purpose. Let's rename this security group here and let's put some description. Okay, so as you can see, SSH protocol has been added already so that we can actually SSH into our EC2 instance. But you can add a new rule, and most typical one is usually HTTPS, where you can host your website and use HTTPS protocol. So you can pick that and then configure your source and all that stuff and launch with it. But in this case, I won't be hosting anything on my EC2 instance, so I'll just delete that, but keep this SSH and hit review and launch. And if you hit review and launch, you can review here and just go ahead and hit launch if you finished reviewing. And as you can see, if you hit launch, it will ask you to select a key pair for this EC2 instance. So I'm going to actually create a new key pair, and you have to download key pair, and it will download your key pair onto your computer. And after that, you just hit launch instance. And as you can see, it says launch failed, saying that my parameter group name is invalid. That's kind of sucks. They should have let me know earlier, but let's go back to review session and then let's go back to my security group here. And apparently I cannot name SG dash whatever. So let me put shawnkoon YouTube first dash and then review and launch. And because I created a key pair already, I'm going to choose an existing key pair, which is shawnkoon EC2 key. And make sure you check this check mark saying that I acknowledge that I'm going to use this key pem and hit launch instance. And if your instance is launched correctly, it will show this checkbox with your instances are now launching. So go ahead and hit view instances. And as you can see, my EC2 instance is a pending state where it's being launched in AWS. So I'll pause the video until this is done. Alright, so my EC2 instance is up and running. As you can see, this green circle here that says running. And if you scroll sideways, you can actually see that public IP address has been assigned to this EC2 instance. And there are all the informations that we gave to this EC2 instance here. So now what we need to do is we need to SSH into this EC2 instance so we can see that it actually worked correctly. So before we actually do this, if you have PuTTY on your computer, I'm actually using Windows, so you would have to use either PuTTY, but there's also this tool called git bash. Just go ahead and type git bash on the Google and download this here. But this is basically a bash shell for Git, but you can actually use a bunch of different Unix commands. And one of the cool thing is you can actually SSH with this git bash. So let's try SSH into our EC2 instance. So first we need to copy our IP address here. I'll Control C and let's type in SSH EC2-user and let's paste in our IP address space -I for key pair. And I actually have to browse into my folder that's containing my key pair that we downloaded at the end of instance launching. And after you do that, just hit enter. And if you do that, it will ask you to confirm connecting, hit yes. And as you can see, I'm logged into my EC2 instance as a EC2 user. So this is a plain Unix shell. So if you're used to Unix, you'll be able to do a bunch of different stuff here. Yeah, so this is how you launch an EC2 instance or a virtual machine on AWS with proper settings. Alright, so now that we know how to launch an EC2 instance, let's learn about how to delete him so that we don't get charged money. So let's exit out of here and let's go back to our AWS console and go ahead and click on the EC2 you want to delete and hit actions and go to instance state and hit terminate. And it will ask you to verify and yes, terminate. And as you can see, my EC2 is being shut down. And I don't know if you guys remember or not, but when I was creating EBS volume and attached my root volume onto my EC2 instance, I said delete that as well on termination checked, so that when I delete my EC2 instance, it will actually delete my volume as well. But if you did not check the box, you would actually have to go into this volume section and delete it manually. And once it's done, it will just say terminated and you won't get charged any more money. So yeah, that's how you create EC2 instance or virtual machine on AWS with proper settings, and how to delete so you don't get charged for unnecessary stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you guys have any questions, please leave questions on the comment section below, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.